You ever get that feeling like someone's behind you, even when you know you're alone? Yeah, that used to happen to me all the time, working late shifts in a game store tucked in the corner of a dying mall. But there was one night, one person, that turned that familiar unease into something else entirely. Something I still dream about, and wake up soaked in sweat, eyes fixed on my door. Let me tell you what really happened. I worked at this small game shop my last year in college. It wasn't a big chain, more of a local spot with retro consoles and overpriced collectibles. But it paid enough for rent, and the people were decent. Most nights were slow, just a few teens browsing or lonely guys hoping to spark up awkward conversations. You learn to deal with it. Smile. Nod. Keep the pepper spray under the counter. The mall was dying, most of the food court was boarded up, and half the stores had gone dark. Sometimes when I walked past the shuttered windows on the way to open up, I'd catch my reflection in the black glass and feel like I was already in a horror movie. But this story didn't start with the darkness. It started with a face. He came in on a Thursday. I remember that because it was raining, and the sound of water hitting the glass roof made the store feel even emptier than usual. He was average looking, clean-shaven, gray hoodie, tan boots, no umbrella, no smile, just eyes, wide, unblinking, and fixed on me the moment he stepped in. I was stocking cases behind the counter, chatting with my manager, Marcus, who was one of the good ones. He was a big dude, ex-military, always had a calm, slow voice, like nothing could ever shake him. We both clocked the guy at the same time. "He look familiar to you?" Marcus asked, not even whispering. "No," I said, keeping my eyes on the cases. "You want me to help him?" Marcus shrugged. "Let's see what he does." That's when it started. The pattern. The man didn't ask for anything. Didn't browse, didn't pick up a single item, just stood near the PS4 rack and stared, not at the games. At me. Whenever I moved to a different section, he followed. Not close. Not enough to call it out. Just enough that if I turned a corner, I'd find him there already waiting, pretending to scan a shelf. After about 20 minutes, Marcus finally cleared his throat. "Hey man, you looking for something?" The guy didn't answer, just stared, then walked out without a word. I thought that was it. Just one of those weirdos you deal with in retail. But when we closed up and I started vacuuming, I looked up, and he was there, standing outside the locked glass doors. In the dark. He didn't knock, didn't move, just watched. For 10 solid minutes, he paced back and forth in front of the store like a shark. Marcus noticed too. He tried to play it cool, counted the till, then walked up to the doors and said something I'll never forget. "You got about 5 seconds to leave, or I'm calling security." The man didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned in, so close I could see his breath fog up the glass, and said, "I'm not here for you. I want to talk to her." Me. I was already halfway to the back room when Marcus turned around and shouted for me to stay out of sight. I listened. I watched the monitor in the break room, heart racing. I could hear the conversation through the feed. Marcus was trying to stay calm, but the guy was getting agitated, insistent, raising his voice. "She wants to see me." "I know she does. You don't speak for her." Marcus finally dialed security. The guy didn't wait. He walked away. That should have been the end. Except it wasn't. The next night, he came back. And the night after that. Only when I wasn't working. Marcus told me he'd always show up 15 minutes before closing. Wouldn't buy anything. Wouldn't talk. Just lurk. When told to leave, he'd smile, nod, and walk out calm as anything. After 3 visits, Marcus told the mall security and filed a report. They couldn't do much. He hasn't done anything illegal, they said. Just being weird isn't a crime. So I started walking to the train station with Marcus after every shift. We stuck together until the doors closed behind me. I didn't tell my parents. Didn't tell my roommates. Just kept it bottled up. I thought maybe if I ignored it, it would stop. I was wrong. It was 2 weeks later when I found something tucked under my windshield wiper. A receipt. From our store. Nothing purchased. Just the timestamp. My shift. My name on the clerk ID line. The exact time I had scanned in the day before. There was a message on the back. "You looked sad yesterday. I'm here now." That's when I knew it wasn't just a crush, or some socially awkward gamer. This man was watching me. Following me. Somehow, I didn't quit. Not right away. I convinced myself it would pass, that he was harmless, just obsessed. Until the night the power went out. It was a Friday. Busy night, lots of customers, but around 8:45 the lights flickered and died. Backup emergency lights came on, casting the whole store in this weird red glow. Marcus went out to check the circuit breaker. I stayed behind the counter, keeping the customers calm. The mall had gone mostly quiet. Other stores were closing early, and that's when I saw him again. He was standing near the back wall, under the emergency light, hands in his hoodie pocket, just staring. But something was different. His expression was expectant, like he was waiting for something to begin. I told myself I wouldn't move, wouldn't give him the satisfaction. But he did. He stepped forward. One step at a time. His eyes never left mine. There were customers in the store, 3 of them near the front, chatting about games like nothing was wrong. They didn't see what I saw. They didn't feel the air get colder. Or maybe they just didn't feel what I did, that he had decided this was the night. I grabbed the phone, called the front desk of mall security. No answer. I turned around to look for Marcus. He wasn't back. I turned back. The man was gone. I ran to the door, locked it. One of the customers looked at me funny, asked what was going on. I lied, said we were closing early due to the outage. Then I heard something. A knock. Not on the glass storefront. From the back door. Employees only. I froze. Another knock. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. I backed away. My phone was in my hand. I dialed Marcus, praying he'd pick up. He did. He was outside. He couldn't get back in. The security doors had locked behind him. He wasn't the one knocking. I grabbed the pepper spray. Customers were now starting to ask questions. I told them to stay put. My voice was shaking. My hands were slick with sweat. Then I heard the voice. Muffled, but unmistakable. Open the door. I just want to talk. I didn't respond. I brought something for you. Something slid under the door. I crept forward, just enough to see. A folded photo of me, taken from behind the counter. That night. Not printed. Developed. Film. The mall police came 15 minutes later, but he was gone by then. Completely vanished. No footage of where he came from or how he got in. The back hallway didn't even have a camera. They never found him. Marcus walked me home that night, and every night after until I quit 2 weeks later. I changed my number, deleted all my social accounts, moved across town, and for a while, I thought I was free. Until last month. I came home to find a small envelope in my mailbox. No stamp. No name. Inside was a photograph. Me. Behind the register again. Only this time, it was from the other side of the counter. From the employee-only area. The caption read, "You looked happy to see me this time." Sometimes I still hear the knock, even when I know there's no door behind me. Some of the worst things I've ever experienced didn't happen in real life. They happened through a screen, in a party chat, with someone I thought I knew. I was only 13 when I joined that gaming group, and I swear I thought I was safe. I got into gaming after moving in with my dad. I was a quiet kid. My parents had just split. I didn't talk much in school, and being the new girl didn't help. But on Xbox Live, I could be anyone. I could speak freely, and people actually listened. My dad got me a mic for Christmas, and I dove headfirst into Halo 3 and Left 4 Dead 2. That's how I found the lobby, a tight-knit group of regulars that always played together. Most of them were older, in their 20s or 30s, but they were chill, funny, protective. I was the kid sister of the group, and they never made me feel out of place. There was one other person my age, Ryan. He was just a few months older than me, and we clicked instantly. We'd play late into the night, talking about everything from school to zombies to the weird stuff in our neighborhoods. He was like the big brother I never had. But then, someone else joined. He went by Junebug. He didn't speak. No mic. No voice. Just text in the chat window. At first, I didn't think much of it. Some people were shy. Or maybe his mic was broken. The others knew him from before, so I gave him the benefit of the doubt. He played well, helped us win matches, always had my back in co-op modes. And he was friendly, too friendly. He started messaging me outside of matches. Innocent stuff, at first. GG, or you saved me that round. Then slowly, he started asking personal questions. What's your school like? Do you have a boyfriend? What do you look like? I didn't answer much. I was awkward and insecure and figured he was just curious. But the questions kept coming, and he never asked anyone else. I mentioned it to Ryan one night. He just said, "That's weird. I don't even know that guy that well." That's when I found out that nobody really knew Junebug. One guy in the group remembered him from back in Halo 2 days, but said he just showed up again one day. Like a ghost account. Always watching. Always quiet. Eventually, I asked him why he never used a mic. He said, "I'm shy." I said, "That's fine. I get it." Then he said something that chilled me, even though I didn't know why at the time. "I like your voice." Things got strange after that. He started joining every single match I was in, even when I didn't invite him. If I switched games, he'd follow. If I logged in late at night, he was already online. I figured maybe he was just lonely. Maybe he didn't have many friends. One night, I was alone online. Everyone else was offline or busy. Junebug sent me a party invite. I didn't accept. He messaged me, "Let's play something. Just us." I told him I was tired. Going to bed. He replied instantly, "But your light's still on." I sat up, looked around my room like an idiot, heart pounding. I lived in a small town. Houses weren't close together. My window faced a field. I stared out into the darkness. Nothing. No movement. No figure. Just tall grass and moonlight. I told myself it was a coincidence. He was just guessing. Maybe he was just being weird. I didn't block him. Not then. I should have. The next day, I got a voice message from him. My heart actually jumped a little. I'd never heard his voice before. I clicked play. It was quiet. Breathy. Then, barely a whisper. "I know what you sound like when you're scared." I dropped the controller. I played it again. Same thing. Same cold, calculated whisper. I didn't tell anyone. Not Ryan. Not my dad. I didn't want to make it real. But I changed my gamer ag that night. Blocked Junebug. Locked down all my accounts. It was over. Or so I thought. A few weeks later, Ryan messaged me. "Hey, did you block Junebug?" I hesitated. "Yeah." He replied, "Good. He's creeping me out. Said some messed up stuff about you last night." My stomach dropped. What did he say? Ryan took a minute before responding. He said, "He saw you sleeping." I froze. I asked what he meant. He said, "She sleeps on her side. She breathes slow. It's cute." I told Ryan everything after that. He freaked out. Told the rest of the group. Everyone blocked him. Deleted him. One guy even reported him. But it didn't matter. A new account added me the next day. No profile pic. No name. Just the default avatar. Gamerag. Silent June. Blocked. Then another. And another. Each one would send a message before I could react. One just said, "You can change your name, but not your breath." The messages stopped after about a month. I figured he gave up. Or Xbox banned him. I was careful. I changed my privacy settings. Stayed off voice chat with strangers. I even stopped gaming for a while. Years passed. I'm older now. I've got a job, an apartment, a life. And then, just last week, I got a letter. Not an email. A real envelope in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a single piece of paper. Typed. No greeting. You breathe slower when you lie. There was no signature. But the bottom of the page had a single line of code. GT, June 3_lives. I sold my Xbox the next morning. But sometimes, late at night, when I lie awake and can't sleep, I swear I can hear that voice again. Whispering in the static. Just breathing. I never thought I'd meet a real monster through a keyboard. No blood, no claws, no mask, just a soft voice, a Steam profile, and a slow, sick obsession that spiraled into something I still can't fully explain. And the worst part? He never technically did anything wrong. I was 19, depressed, and practically living in Counter-Strike. Global offensive. If you've ever played online games at 3 a.m., you know the vibe. Tired conversations with strangers, the occasional deep talk, and sometimes, just sometimes, you meet people who make the world feel less heavy. That's what happened with Derek. We clicked in a late-night deathmatch server, both of us joking about how philosophical we got when we hadn't slept. He was funny, smart, didn't push boundaries. After a few nights, it became routine. Hop online, join a match, talk about everything and nothing. Then came Corey. He joined one of our lobbies, no mic, but friendly in the chat. Said stuff like, "You two have good vibes," and "I've never wanted to be friends with someone over a game this badly." It was harmless, at first. He asked to add us. I hesitated, but Derek said sure, so I followed. Corey promised he'd have a mic the next day. And he did. His voice was soft. Too soft. Like every word was being tested for effect before he spoke it. But he was polite. Enthusiastic. Wanted to know everything about us. He asked about my favorite music, my favorite food, my favorite sound. That last one threw me. Why? I asked. I like knowing what people find comforting, he said. So I can become that. I laughed, nervously, but I didn't say anything. I didn't want to be rude. By the fourth day, Corey was joining every match uninvited. Derek and I never sent him invites, and he knew we played late to avoid distractions. He even said he was too busy with school for nighttime gaming. But there he was, every night, without fail. At first, it was easy to ignore. But then he started gifting Derek in-game skins. Expensive ones. Knife skins, cases, keys, all things that CS, Go players value like gold. Each time, he'd say something like, "You better be taking care of her. She deserves someone who listens. She sounds like she needs someone stronger." The worst part? Derek wasn't even my boyfriend. We were just friends. He had a girlfriend. I told Corey this. Didn't matter. That's when Corey started slipping, and I started seeing who he really was. I remember the moment clearly. We were playing Dust 2, talking over voice chat like always, when Corey, unprompted, said, "Is your body as smooth as your voice?" Everyone went dead silent. Even Derek. I awkwardly laughed it off. "Dude, chill." But Corey just sighed. "I'm sorry. Your voice makes me trust you." He started doing this more often, saying things that sounded rehearsed, like he had practiced them in front of a mirror. They weren't natural. They were crafted. I told Derek, and he tried to downplay it. "He's just weird, not dangerous." But then Corey messaged me at 4 a.m. one night. "Do you dream in color?" It was followed by 10 more messages, all in rapid succession. "Do you like tall guys? What do you smell like? Would you ever date someone who's never had a girlfriend? Would you let someone watch you sleep if it made them feel safe?" Each one made my skin crawl. I stopped replying. I muted him in-game, blocked him on Steam, and then the DMs started from new accounts. Each name a variation. _Corey _alone, smooth voice lover, sleepless for you. They all said the same thing. "Please unblock me. I can be better. I'll stop talking. I just want to hear you breathe." I stopped gaming for a while, changed my profile pic, updated my name, but I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. My webcam was unplugged, my mic muted, yet I'd still get messages like, "I miss the way you hum when you're thinking. Your sighs sound different when you're sad." I tried brushing it off as paranoia. Maybe he was guessing. Maybe I was overreacting. Until one night, Derek messaged me, panicked. "Did you give Corey your address?" My heart stopped. "No." "Why?" "He just messaged me. Said he saw you at the coffee shop on Main. Said you looked distracted. That's near your place, right?" I hadn't posted anything about where I lived. I'd never told him the name of my street, the coffee shop, or the neighborhood. But he was right. That's where I'd been. That's what I'd worn. He described the exact hoodie I had on, the navy one with the frayed sleeves. I ran to the window. Street empty. I locked every door. I filed a report with Steam and local police. Steam banned his original account. The cops said there was not enough to act on, since he hadn't made a direct threat. But the next day, I got a letter. A physical letter. Just my online username written in tight cursive on the front. Midnight Muse. No return address. Inside was a photograph. Me, sitting in the cafe. Back turned to the camera. The caption, typed in 10 points times New Roman, read, "Muted, but not gone." I moved a month later. Deleted my Steam. Wiped my socials. Started over. I still play CS sometimes, but only offline. Sometimes I still catch myself humming without realizing. And then I wonder if someone, somewhere, is still listening, waiting, breathing. There's a certain sound a house makes when you're truly alone in it. I used to find comfort in it. Those soft floorboard creaks and settling walls, like the house was breathing with me. But after that night, I learned that sometimes the house is holding its breath for a reason. When I was 12, my mom was in the middle of one of her worst years. She was drinking again. That meant her boyfriend, let's call him Ray, was around more. Ray was the kind of guy whose voice always sounded like a warning, even when he was saying something nice. They fought constantly. Loud, violent, disgusting fights. Doors would get kicked in. Holes in the walls. My little brother and I learned early on that locking our doors was pointless, because Ray had kicked both the front and back ones off their hinges more than once. They never got fixed. Our house was never locked. Not once. That night, Mom and Ray had gone out drinking again. I didn't know where, just that they'd be gone until morning. That was their routine. So, my brother and I took the opportunity to turn the living room into a battleground of snacks and PlayStation games. He was 10, small for his age, and had asthma so bad he wheezed after laughing too hard. I always kept an eye on him. By midnight, we were in his bedroom, both sitting cross-legged in front of the TV, trading controllers and talking trash like nothing outside those four walls could touch us. Then I heard it. A creak. Not the gentle settling kind. The sharp, hesitant kind. Like weight shifting on a loose board. It came from the front of the house. I froze. Looked at my brother. He didn't notice. He was laughing at something dumb on screen. "I'm gonna grab some drinks," I told him. He nodded, eyes glued to the game. But I wasn't thirsty. I was listening. I slipped out of the bedroom and crept down the hall. The hallway in our house connected the back bedrooms to the living room in a straight shot. When you stepped into that living room, the front door was directly ahead. The back door was just past the kitchen on the left. I paused at the corner. There was someone in the house. I didn't hear another creak. No door slam. No voice. Just this presence. I should have turned around. Should have grabbed my brother, locked us both in the bathroom, and called 911. But instead, I took one more step. Just one. And that's when I saw him. A man. Sitting on our couch. Not sleeping. Not passed out. Sitting upright. Hands on his knees. Facing forward. Like he'd been waiting. He was huge. At least 6'5", maybe more. Heavy. His frame barely fit between the armrests. He wore a faded jacket and mud-stained jeans. And the grin on his face. It was wide. Way too wide. Not excited. Not amused. Just expectant. Like he knew I'd show up. I stumbled back into the hallway, breath caught in my throat. My mind blanked, survival instincts kicking in. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I crept backward, hand pressed to the wall, pulse pounding in my ears. When I reached the bedroom, my brother was still playing. "Hey," I said softly, kneeling beside him. "Let's work on the fort. In the closet, remember?" He looked at me and frowned. "Now." "Yeah, I need your help with it." I watched as he climbed into the closet, wheezing a little. His asthma was acting up. I told him to breathe slow, be brave, stay quiet. Then I closed the closet door and shut the bedroom door behind me. The windows in our room were stuck shut. Old wood frame, warped from years of moisture and neglect. I checked anyway. No luck. My hands were shaking as I sifted through blankets and piles of laundry, searching for anything I could use as a weapon. Then I found it. My older brother's phone. He'd left it there during his last visit. By some miracle, it still had battery. I called 911. The dispatcher answered. I whispered what I'd seen. And just as I did, I heard it. Tap, 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 at our bedroom door, followed by a low, growling voice. Not words, just a sound, like a bear waking up from hibernation. Rough, deep, hungry. I pressed the phone to my chest to muffle the sound. My brother had started wheezing harder now. I rushed to him, whispering soothing nonsense to keep him calm. Then came the banging. Slow, rhythmic fists slamming against the door. Boom, boom, boom. Then a pause. Then a voice. "I know you're in there, little girl." My knees buckled. I pulled my brother close. Held him so tight I thought I might crack a rib. The dispatcher was still on the line, whispering for me to stay calm. Help was on the way. But it didn't feel like help was coming. It felt like we were already dead. Then, the banging stopped. Silence. For one breathless moment, I thought maybe he'd left. Then the man spoke again. This time, almost sweetly. "You know I could kick this door in right now, don't you?" A light tapping sound followed. Scratch, scratch, scratch. I imagined long fingernails dragging down the paint. But when the police got there, it wasn't fingernails. It was a knife. They tackled him right outside our door. He fought, screamed, howled like an animal. But they pinned him down. When the female officer knocked softly and told us it was safe, I still couldn't move. Not until she opened the door herself. I don't remember much of what happened next. Just flashing lights. Faces. My brother crying into my shirt. But I do remember what they found in the man's pockets. Rope. Duct tape. A folded plastic tarp. And the knife. So long it could have been a small machete. They never figured out how he got in. He wasn't a neighbor. He didn't know Ray or Mom. He wasn't even from our town. He'd picked our house at random. Saw that our door didn't latch. Walked in while we were playing games. Sat down on the couch like he'd been invited. Waited. I don't sleep well anymore. I check every door and window 5 times before bed. I lock the closet. I even wedged chairs under the doorknob. But still, every now and then, in the dead of night, I hear it. A creak. Just one. Like someone shifting their weight in the living room, waiting for me to step out again. You never really notice the walls around you until someone's on the other side of them. And when that someone knows exactly when you're asleep, what you're watching, and when you're alone, the wall doesn't feel like protection anymore. It feels like a paper-thin veil waiting to be torn down. I moved into the house on Ridge Street 6 months ago. It wasn't anything special: old wood floors, thin windows, and a smell like dust and forgotten rain. But the rent was cheap, and for someone just out of state and still getting their bearings, it felt like a blessing. I shared the place with 2 roommates. We got along fine, even if we weren't especially close. The house itself was divided weirdly, like it had been 2 separate homes once, slapped together with drywall and duct tape. My room wasn't a room at all. It was the old living room of the left side unit, sealed off with a flimsy interior door and thin shared walls. My walls didn't insulate sound. They amplified it. And on the other side of that wall lived Beth. Beth was different. We were warned about her before we even signed the lease. She doesn't like renters, our landlord said. Don't bother her, and she won't bother you. Beth was old, late 60s maybe. Small, with thick glasses and thin gray hair. She always wore the same frayed housecoat and mismatched slippers. I only saw her a few times during the first month. She never smiled, never spoke, but she watched. The first time I noticed it was a Tuesday. My roommate had gone out. I was home alone, playing music softly on my laptop while organizing books on a shelf. Then came the knock. 3 soft taps, perfectly spaced. From the wall, the one that separated my room from hers. I froze, stared at the drywall like it would blink back. Then came her voice. High-pitched, raspy, like a broken music box. "I can hear you dancing." I laughed, nervously. Thought it was some weird coincidence or a prank. I wasn't even dancing, just swaying a little. That night, I told my roommate. She shrugged it off. "She's harmless. Just weird." But it wasn't harmless. Not when it kept happening. Every single night. It started small. Comments through the wall that lined up perfectly with what I was doing. "That show's too loud. I like the other playlist better. You sleep on your left side more." It became a game. I'd move around the room silently. Test her. She always knew. Sometimes she'd knock. Sometimes she'd whisper. And once she sang, off-key, barely above a whisper, "You're not alone, even when you think you are." We complained to the landlord. He promised to talk to her. For a while, it quieted down. Then came the packages. Beth would intercept them. Things I ordered online. She'd take them before I got home and deliver them herself. Only she wouldn't knock on our front door. She'd knock on the wall. Then, like some twisted ritual, she'd throw the packages against the baseboard. "It's here," she'd whisper. "Come get it." I started using pickup lockers instead, but that only made her angrier. The banging came back, louder now, more frequent, like fists and elbows slamming into the wall. Always between 4 and 5 a.m. I'd wake up to the sound of her moaning through the wall, her humming, or just saying my name, dragging it out like it tasted sour. My roommates didn't experience it as intensely. Her bedroom shared the wall with mine, not theirs. It was like I was the only one she targeted. Then, one night, I FaceTimed my mom. I was crying, sleep-deprived, on edge, telling her everything. Beth must have heard me, because right in the middle of our call, through the wall, came her voice. "Mommy can't help you now." I dropped the phone. I screamed. My mom thought someone had broken in. I wish someone had, because at least then, it would make sense. I began keeping records, videos, audio recordings. My landlord refused to take action until there was proof of a threat. So I waited, and I got it. It was 2 weeks ago. I'd gotten home late, headphones in, walking up the porch steps. I didn't hear Beth open her side door. Didn't realize she was behind me until I felt the breath on my neck. I turned, and there she was, inches away. No glasses, just her face, smiling. "He told me your bones would be hollow," she whispered. "He said I'd hear them rattle when you sleep." Then she reached out 2 fingers, trembling, and tapped the center of my forehead. Just once. I didn't move, didn't blink. When I finally stepped back, she was still smiling. "Don't shut me out," she said. Then she turned and disappeared into her side of the house. I filed a police report the next day. They said there wasn't much they could do unless she entered my space. She hadn't. Not yet. But that night, I heard her again. Only this time. She wasn't behind the wall. It was just past 3 a.m. I was half asleep when I heard the creak of wood. Not from the wall. From inside my room. My eyes snapped open. The sound was faint. Measured. Like someone testing their weight. I sat up, heart hammering. Then came the voice. From behind my chair. "Do you sleep on your back when you dream?" I screamed. Fell off the bed. Grabbed my phone. By the time the light came on in, she was gone. The door was still locked. No sign of forced entry. I moved out the next day. Didn't pack. Just left. I couldn't be there another second. The landlord didn't believe me. He still rinsed that room out. A week ago, I got a voicemail from an unknown number. It was quiet at first. Just faint static. Breathing. Then, that same voice. "This wall is thinner than the last one." Sometimes, at night, I hear tapping on the walls again. But now, I'm on the 3rd floor. And there's no one next door.